Dear learners, we shall be continuing with the lectures on artificial intelligence and business law. And in this part, we shall be going over some important topics related to artificial intelligence and law, this particular relationship, and why is it that we need to regulate AI. So, on this topic, the first point that we need to understand is computation. So, what do we mean by computation? According to the scholar Joanna Bryson, computation is the physical transformation of information without which intelligence cannot exist. So, what is it meant when we say the physical transformation of information? This basically says that intelligence is grounded in the physical world. That is, thinking is a material process. Thinking is not something that comes out of nowhere. Intelligence is inherently limited by physical reality. That means that there is a time and energy component in any kind of intelligence. The human brain also expends certain energy when it performs intelligent tasks. Similarly, an artificially intelligent computer system also needs to expend resources to carry out intelligent tasks. Hence, intelligence is limited by physical reality. The point is that no matter how clever we are, our ability to process and predict is limited, it is capped by the sheer volume of time and energy that is available to us. So, this means that building faster and smarter AI, inherently, that means building bigger data centers, bigger, powerful AI systems will consume a lot more power. So computation depends upon the real world resources. So it depends upon the time you have, it depends upon the space you have, it depends upon the energy that you have. And if you are limited in any of these criteria, then the level of intelligence that you will be able to utilize will be limited. So these resources act as fundamental limits on what human as well as artificial intelligence can achieve. And no system can function instantaneously. You cannot have a system that does not need any time, space, and energy because that violates the laws of physics. So no system can function instantaneously or without using power, and that means there is a sort of a balance. You might have to restrict the level of intelligent capabilities you have if you are limited by resources. If you have a lot of resources, maybe you can have a more powerful system. But if you don't have resources, if you have limited resources, that means you need to allocate certain aspects of the system. That means that in the real world, the most powerful AI system might only be able to run for perhaps very short periods of time, or maybe it might consume a lot of power that might not be easily able to be generated. So, we have also covered in previous discussions what resources are used by AI systems. We have talked about this in the previous section. So, when you have limited resources, and in our world, we don't have infinite resources, we don't have infinite, let's say, in the context of AI, we don't have infinite electricity, we don't have infinite water for cooling. So, there is a certain limit up to which intelligence works. So, these limits and the decisions that are taken towards allocation of the resources which have these limits. This is fundamental to the fields of AI ethics and regulation. And since computation is so resource intensive, the choices we make about how and where we deploy AI are very ethical decisions. So, the relationship between AI and law has this as a very core part of it. How far can you allocate these resources? How much will you have to trade off? Would you sacrifice power for efficiency, or would you sacrifice efficiency for greater intelligence? So these are some of the trade-offs that are made when we are considering AI ethics and AI regulation. So we must regulate the use of these powerful resource hungry systems so that we can ensure fairness, sustainability, and equality. So upon this, we move to the next very important aspect, that is responsibility. So hence, if there is someone who is in charge of designing AI systems, who is in charge of deploying AI systems, that person has a responsibility upon them. So the main important point here is that artificial intelligence is only a qualifier. It means that the AI is an artifact made through a human process. The AI is a tool that we have constructed. So what do we mean when we say AI is an artifact? An artifact means that an object which is made or modified by a human being. An artifact is an object made or modified by a human being. This therefore places the ultimate responsibility with the maker, not the tool itself. And this idea of AI being an artifact rejects the notion that a machine can ever be truly autonomous in a legal or ethical sense. It may generate an output that you might not be able to figure out where it's coming from, but whatever that output is will always depend on the input that you give to it. So it will always be traceable. Proper AI, properly documented AI is the best way to deploy AI. We'll come to documentation as well soon. So responsibility is a very human concept, and AI simply changes the way we have to look at responsibility. It should not be used to completely make responsibility disappear. We still have to be careful about responsibility, but we have to look at it in a new light. We still have to care about responsibility, but we have to look at it in a new light. So responsibility will now be a special. So as Bryson says, no fact of either biology, that is the study of life, or of computer science, that is the study of what is computable, computation, names a necessary point at which a human responsibility should end. So responsibility does not end irrespective of whatever kind of intelligence system we are working with. That means responsibility is not a fact of nature. It is something that humans have upon them to ensure and to practice and to make sure that it is followed throughout whatever standards or regulation systems that you build. So again, continuing from this, even systems that are developed through machine learning. So why even system developed through machine learning, even if the system is making its own rules based on the data that you give it to them, still always comes from human choices of algorithms, training data, release criteria, and these are all documented human decisions. So every step in the AI life cycle, from the initial selection of what data you are putting into it to the final data that it generates for the final release. So every step in the AI life cycle, from initial selection of data to the final release criteria, is a traceable human decision. The system is never purely self-generated. The initial framework and testing will always be human choices and human decisions. And the failure to produce documentation of these processes, if a person fails to document how this has been developed, that should be treated as a matter of law, just like we look at any other forms of manufacturing techniques that are inadequate, that are not proper according to regulatory standards. So AI should also be subject to similar regulatory processes. So because with AI, what is easier, yet companies sometimes fail to maintain transparent records, right? So this poor AI development practice should be viewed as negligence. Regulators can easily check if there is a due diligence that has been followed before product is licensed. It is of course perfectly possible to mandate the technology be designed to comply with laws, making it more sensible to maximize compliance to existing laws rather than minimizing change to them. Because the nature of the machine is flexible, the most effective part is to compel the machine to conform to the law in whichever way it might be implemented, requiring features like traceability and accountability of the human action involved in design. So the law must mandate design for accountability. In context of business law, of course, these points are very relevant. The failure to produce documentation and technology being designed to comply with laws. Even not just the design of technology, but how a particular business is utilizing AI tools. Even that should be in adherence with how compliance is to be done. So, based on this, we come to the next point, that is, often AI is used as a way to evade accountability. So it is important to center the design choices and user choices that humans make when deploying AI instead of treating AI as an autonomous entity. So it is humans that decide what data is collected, filtered, labeled. We talked about labeling in the previous section as well. So if the training data reflects historical bias, the AI will of course replicate and even amplify that bias. So it's not just a matter of replicating, it's also a matter of amplifying, increasing discrimination, increasing bias, increasing othering. So that is also something that we need to take into account, that AI might amplify certain issues. So shifting the focus from the machine to the human requires establishing clear lines of responsibility at every stage of the AI lifecycle. So this includes accountability systems for designers, for developers, for organizations using and deploying AI, and also regulatory accountability. Thus, the problem of governance, of regulation, is of designing our artifacts, including the law itself, in a way that helps us maintain social order and sustain human dignity. The law is a tool for managing society, and we must design it to manage this powerful technology. Responsibility, as mentioned earlier, is not a fact of nature. It is a set of human decisions, human values, human processes that we must actively implement into our designs and our laws. So, just to summarize what we just talked about, why do we need to regulate AI? I will go back to the slides just to summarize. So, we talked about computation, we talked about the resources that constrain the working of any kind of intelligence, and we talked about the decisions related to the allocation of the resources that are fundamental to the field of AI ethics and regulation. Then we talked about responsibility and what responsibility means and how AI changes that idea of responsibility, how human responsibility is not a fact of nature, it is a necessary point. And we talked about how neither biology nor computer science say that human responsibility ends at a certain point. It is not a fact of nature. AI is an artifact, and an artifact means that humans have made it, constructed it, modified it. And then talked about accountability and design choices. So even systems developed through machine learning are all generated by design. They're all documented human decisions. So a failure to produce documentation should be treated as a matter of law. And thus technology should be designed to comply with laws. And design choices should be made in such a way that accountability cannot be evaded. Accountability must be ensured so that we can maintain social order and sustain human dignity. So from here we move on to talking about the various laws around the world as well as in India that regulate AI. Thank you.